Hello, my name is Jeff Rolka. I want to thank you for checking out my video. A little while back, I switched over to an SSL SiX mixing console for video production. You are in fact hearing me through it right now. And I did a couple different videos. One, a longer video about all of the different features, and I did some comparisons and contrasting between the SSL and an older Mackie VLZ3 Pro that has served me for such a long time, and I still have and will probably still use from time to time. But compared and contrasted that, I talked a lot about its features. I also did another video on the SSL SiX because a listener came in with a question about recording bass through it. So I plugged in the bass and did a bit of fussing around. Suffice to say, having now had the device for the better part of 6 months, I have some updates, some additional thoughts. I want to show you some routing options and talk about some other routing options. We're going to talk about using a reverb and a comfort reverb. There's more information about the bass recording, which I found really interesting. And as well, I've got my list here. We'll get into it. Before we go too far, I own all this stuff. I bought it with my own money. No one has given me anything that you will see that I will talk about or otherwise use in this video to demonstrate the SSL SiX and all that kind of stuff. I don't have any sponsorships except for you. I'm supported by you, listeners, watchers, something like that. And I appreciate that. If you feel so inclined, the description has several options, some of which, like Amazon affiliate links, don't cost you anything. Just a small portion of the proceeds of that sale would come and support the channel, but your shopping experience would be the same. Those are links in the description. There's also Patreon where you can get MP3s and PDFs of my warm-ups and stuff like that. So, before we get too far, I already mentioned that I don't have any sponsorships. All right, let's talk about signal path for a second and what you are hearing, because you are hearing me through the SSL SiX, and thankfully I've got another camera on it so we can show you all this good stuff. This is a lavalier, an Audio-Technica Pro 70 condenser lavalier mic. That's the microphone I use for the vast majority of my video recording. You are hearing me through it as we speak, as I speak. It's coming in here on channel 1, the super analog channel. You can see that 48 volt phantom power is engaged. I've got a healthy amount of trim. The inline compressor is engaged, and not the most aggressive setting that one could use, but I really want to make sure that things don't clip, so I've got that going. I do not have the channel EQ engaged currently, nor do I have Q2 engaged, and we'll get more to that in a moment, nor do I have Q1 engaged, though the input from this channel is automatically sent to both of those fold-back outputs on the back panel of the SiX. I'm a little bit below 0 here on the fader because in the recordings of things, I want my voice to blend nicely with the piano, and I just like it there. It works for me, and particularly too between the makeup on the compressor and when I start singing, if I'm in a singing video, then it works quite nicely. That's coming over to the variety of different output monitoring stuff that you have over here. This is our master fader. It's set to Unity. This is our monitor output controls, where you have a variety of different things, including cutting it out. I could mute it. And this is where the camera is getting its feed from. So if I push this cut button, I can keep on talking, and you're not going to hear anything, and it doesn't make any sense for me to keep talking when you can't hear me when I push that button. So anyways, these would be the phone outputs right here, which I'm going to get onto in a moment when I demonstrate some different effects routing options for you. And then you have a variety of different selections for monitor sources. You can see that right now the mains is selected here, and so that is sending the main bus out to here, and that's going out to the camera. So really, right now with my lavalier mic, if I were to mute the piano, you are only hearing my first channel. Additionally, you're hearing the G series bus compressor, making sure that we're getting out close to 0 on the way output. And that's really it. There's nothing else that you're hearing. The thing that I have found so awesome about the SiX is what I mentioned in the first video review. I said I wanted to get something what I called release-ready audio. How good can I get the audio to sound so that I can go straight from the device into the camera? And I have to say I am thrilled with that result. It's working out spectacularly well for me. That being said, of course, you'll notice the collider, the source audio collider, delay, and reverb that's over there. Sometimes it's a bit dry, and especially if I'm working on songs and things like that and I want to have cans on and listen, I like to have a little bit of a verb in there so I can hear different things. It's just kind of nice. Additionally, I've been using the collider to spatialize the piano a little bit more in my warm-up videos. Before, when I was processing everything in post, I'm going to bring everything back up because that's probably going to give me a little bit of ambiance around the room. When I was processing everything in post, I could do things with delays on a single channel. The Mackie, that was just untenable. And here, it works out really quite nicely. So let's talk about effects routing. I am doing pretty much what it says in the manual is possible, which is to say I am using stereo Q2 to feed the source audio, delay, and reverb. And I'm using currently my sort of standard, just the verb that I use to spatialize the piano when I'm recording my voice videos. I'm going to mute my lavalier mic so that you're just getting the 2 microphones that are under the piano. Now you can probably still hear me from afar. Yeah, I can hear that in the cans. So I'm going to take out the verb. Touch, but what it does is it really fills out the stereo field in a nice seamless way. Now if we get a little crazy, obviously you can really hear that. That's just a nice kind of delay verb that source audio has. And that's the beautiful thing. I'm going to bring my lav mic back in so you can hear me properly. The beautiful thing about the way the summing occurs on the SiX is over here, it's all additive. So if I engage this, now you can hear the collider coming back in. I'm bleeding onto the piano mics. If I engage Q2, then you'll get even more of the effect because I'm feeding it directly off of the fold back output, the send there. So those are on the back, and I'm going to get rid of that because it's a bit silly, but nice. That's feeding the collider, and you're getting this nice delay spatialization. The question that came in was, how could you do the routing for a comfort verb for someone who was singing in the studio? And right off the top of my head, I could think of a couple different ways to do this. There's the way that I'm doing it, which is out the Q sends on the back of the SiX. Those go out of there, they come into the collider. Truth be told, I'm only running the collider mono in, stereo out, because I'm using my old Motorola smartphone to control the options on the collider. That's what this cable is doing right there. So mono in, stereo out is plenty to do some spatialization on the piano. You could easily put in another cable because the foldback outputs on the SiX are stereo. I could put another cable in and have full-on stereo out, full-on stereo in. I am coming back in on external input 2, the volume for which is controlled here, and that is then feeding into the main bus, and we're hearing it in the main bus because I'm engaging external 2 over here. So you get the dry signal through channels 2 and 3 and 4, 3/4, which is a one of the stereo channels on the SiX. I am using the talkback microphone preamplifier to have a second mic. Normally the SiX only has 2 microphone preamps, 2 microphone inputs for channels 1 and 2. But in my scenario, since I'm using this all on my own here, I don't have like a booth that I am needing a talkback mic for. You can take the talkback mic or plug a microphone into it. It has phantom power. It also has the LMC. The LMC listen mic compressor is not engaged right now. But the 48 volt feeds a Rode NT5 that's under the piano. And then that I am sending out the talkback channel here on foldback Q1. I bring that back in to the left-hand side of channels 3 and 4, and there I get my 2 piano mics, when normally this mixer says it only has 2 microphone pre's. Now obviously if you needed the talkback, you wouldn't be able to do this, but for my purposes and in my applications, it works remarkably well. A word to the wise, some of you have probably already figured this out, but it is possible to create a feedback loop by engaging the Q1 when you are coming out of the talkback on Q1, because these channels automatically feed back into the Q, so they automatically are normalized to the foldback outputs. And with this engaged, what I've done, what you can do is create that loop by engaging Q send 1 on the channel that has that microphone plugged into it. I learned this the hard way, but I did learn something really valuable in addition to the feedback loop that is potentially created by this, which is that SSL's help desk is really, really responsive. I sent them an email describing my problem. I sent them a video of the problem, and they came back literally within hours just saying, you got a feedback loop. The output is plugged into the input. You can't really do that. So there you go. You probably would not have done that. Hopefully, I have done it for you if it seems like it might have been a problem. There's just so many buttons and knobs on this thing. And some things intercancel, some things are additive, others have switchable sorts of effects. So for example, when I was talking about the stereo bus selections over here, those are all additive. Those are all going to add into the output of your stereo bus. But the buttons here for the foldback outputs cancel in order of ranking. So from the bottom to the top, they will cancel one another out depending on which height is engaged. So it's conceivable to leave some engaged and then engage another one to cancel it out. It'll automatically cancel, and then when you disengage whatever it was you needed that for, your original setup will have been preserved. And similar things happen in the monitor source selection as well. Those, I believe, are additive for the monitors, but the phones cancel everything out. So if I'm listening on the phones here and I hit Q1, then it will cut off the monitor source select for my cans, which would mean that I wouldn't even be hearing myself in the cans right now because that main is sending out to the monitor here. A quick note about the monitor, if we zoom in really, really closely, you will notice that this one goes to 11. I have to believe that was done intentionally, and I really like it. It goes to 11. Now, there are additional ways that you could route the effects. I've gone into my setup in quite detail. Another one that you could do, if you really wanted, like you wanted a comfort reverb and you only had a single vocalist, you could still send everything out the stereo Q, which I've done here, stereo Q2, and then instead of coming back on external 2, come back in on channels 5 and 6 and then that would let you use the Q send for 5 and 6, assuming your artist was on Q1, to blend in some of that return so they get that nice, warm, reverby sound. If you went ahead and got the DB25 connectors, you would still be able to send a direct output of the signal of the artist coming in on channel 1 to your digital audio workstation. So if we take another look at the SiX, the insert is not currently engaged, but if we engage that, that is actually just the return that inserts whatever's coming back into the signal path. But the output, which is accessed on the DB25 connector, is always active. So whether that's engaged or not, you could always plug in the mono insert send output from the DB25 connector into an input on your DAW. You could have a pre-fader output of your artist's microphone to work on and mix down, and their comfort verb wouldn't be on there. Additionally, you could obviously also do a send and return on the insert. That is gonna print to track then, because you're gonna use either your mains or your monitor outputs, and you may not necessarily want to do that. So for a comfort verb that's not getting printed to your DAW, then using the insert send as a direct output is probably a good bet. Using the Q2 to send to the verb, and then Q1 for your artist's headphones, or some similar kind of setup. Now, in my bass video, I had a lot of distortion on the bass. It was clicking and doing all this weird stuff. There'll be a link, or I'll put a clip here. In any case, I thought it was something that I was doing wrong. I assumed that I had something routed incorrectly or whatever. But after perusing SSL's website, I found this. Why does my SiX channel compressor distort low tones? This is apparently a known issue. We decided for the channel compressor that we wanted something in the middle of the G comp and the LMC. Our own console dynamics are incredibly versatile, their words, so we could vary the characteristic quite drastically. We settled on a characteristic that allows transients to pop through occasionally, so it won't crush your drum's vocals, but was quick enough to tame most sources and tighten them up. The only source the channel compressor is not ideal for is long, sustained, low end, so pads, lower octave strings, bass guitars, etc. We suggest as an alternative in this instance is that the channel compressor is reserved for most other sources and that you track bass through the bus compressor. So it's a known choice on SSL's part. Turns out I wasn't doing anything wrong at all. I had just stumbled upon one of the design constraints that they had built into the system. That's it as far as all of the updates are concerned. As a wrap-up, I love this thing. It's made the production of my videos vast, not just easier, like easy is good, but it's also made it better. Like getting levels is easier, better, it sounds better. Every way that I have plugged something into this thing and sent it out to listen to it has been pristinely clear. And I have been nothing but absolutely thrilled with how the device has been functioning. It's been absolutely great. It does kick off a lot of heat back here, so on a hot day like today, you get this as an additional heat source. But I mean, that's how Class A electronics work anyway, so it's not really much of a surprise. It's fantastic if you can afford it, and if it works with your workflow, I think you would be thrilled to have it in your studio. I certainly am. It makes getting tones and getting set up just a thrill. It's just really easy and fun, and I love the way it sounds. I love practicing with it. So when I'm not shooting videos, I use the mics under the piano. I'll get a stage mic up here, get my cans on. I've got a few other reverbs that I really, really like just for fun. And it's just delightful. It's really, really easy to use in a way. I mean, it's easy in that it's accommodating. However you want to wire things together, you can probably find a way to do it to satisfy your requirements. But there's a lot of buttons, there's a lot of knobs, and some of them do fairly dramatic things. There's a reason why my vocal EQ is turned off, is because I don't feel like I've really got it under control yet. I'm still figuring that out. And that's probably a pretty good place to quit here, because I've covered a lot of ground and I know that this has gone on longer than I even intended it to, but I like talking about gear. So there's going to be more of these. I hope that you've enjoyed this. Please drop your questions into the comments. If there's like instruments you want to hear, there's something you want me to try, let me know. And with that, I will say thank you so very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Take really good care of your gear, and your gear will take really good care of you. And hopefully we'll see you again. Bye.